Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, the dreaded DM, DBJ, and welcome to this Future Friday. For those who are new to the show or just tune in, each Friday, let me explain a few things. There is the, yeah, there is a subject that we talk about during the week, and we tend to talk about it Monday through Friday. And when it comes to Future Friday, some of you may just be interested in science fiction, or specifically, what we like to talk about is transhumanism um, in tabletop RPGs, especially if you are interested in Altered Carbon, which has just been released. The Kickstarter's done and the PDF is out there, waiting for my physical copy. The second season of Altered Carbon has already aired. It's on Netflix here in the States. We also have the second edition of Eclipse Phase, which has cleaned up a lot of the mechanics of the system, but it's absolutely positively embraces transhumanism. And of course, this is kind of a second generation for this channel as well. So, but this week we were talking about unreliable narrators and even point of view characters and slightly info dumping. But when it comes to science fiction, I thought this would be a good subject to talk about for science fiction gaming, and to hit some of the problems that we have when we're game masters, and of course a lot of player interaction thereof. All right, so let's get into it. Unreliable narrators. Now, those of you who know out there, literally, the unreliable narrator or the point of view character is one or various points in your story are told through the narration of a particular individual. And the unreliable narrator usually is someone that has a particular agenda, or they have limited knowledge, or maybe they're crazy, or they're young, or it's from the point of view of like an alien or an AI or an uplifted animal, essentially a being that does not look at the world the way you normally would look at it, but you're hoping to trust their information. And the great thing about science fiction, okay, this may not be great for on a practical sense, but the great thing about science fiction is that um, unreliable narrations are actually our bread and butter in science fiction, simply because science tells us so much about the world that we have no other reason but to default to believing in what we hear and see. So an example would be that those of you out there who have owned a car or cars in a modern context will know this problem. Sometimes you'll be driving your car and one or a number of lights will activate on your dashboard. I'm getting to a point, okay? And you take the car in, you're like, what is going on? The car sounds funny, it's overheating, it's not driving correctly, whatever. And you take it into a mechanic, and the mechanic says, well, I don't really see anything mechanically wrong with it, but one of your sensors is out. And it becomes this other thing where the science of what we know, what we expect, what we can experience, our eyes, our senses, and then what's wrong may there might not be any interaction with that. What the problem might be is our way to sense if there's something wrong or not, right? Sensors meaning, so let's go further into science fiction, right? Radar, sonar, thermal imaging, detecting neutrinos, gamma radiation, all these kind of things. A lot of times what happens is emergencies and problems and issues can come about where we trust the technology more than we trust our own senses. And while the PCs might be smart enough to trust or not trust those things, um, it's also possible that the mechanical systems, the AI, the security systems, the way things run and operate may be entrusting the sensors more than they're trusting the actual events, right? So an example would be a fire alarm going off in a building. Okay, well, in a modern context here on Earth, a fire alarm goes off. We tend to think like, is there really a fire? People poke their head out of rooms, and unless there's securities running around like, hey, everybody, please, get the hell out the building, or you smell smoke or fire, or you see people falling off the top, floors of the building. Most people were like, oh, somebody set off the fire alarm again, or somebody was smoking in the hallway or whatever, right? But when you're in a space habitat and there's not much more than a thin membrane between you and death, uh, you know radiation flares and radiation bursts, solar flares, disruptions in gravity, um, all those kind of things. When the sensors go off, people are going to panic because you need to trust better to trust the information. It's like trust but verify, right? Like, okay, if the sensors that you're wearing on your spacesuit go off because a gamma ray burst just went off, are you going to trust that? Nah, it's just a false alarm when you see your tag turn black because you've just been inundated by too much radiation. No, you might believe the sensors. So in a manner of speaking, while sensors aren't a narrator, they can very much dictate when and how people act and react and such. So, for example, an enemy or even the player characters might fake a radiation burst to lock people down and to have people leave a room, or they could fake disruptions in the air quality so that people leave the main part of the habitat to have air scrubbers, maintenance drones come in and try to clean the place up, allowing the PCs to gain access to something. So sensors are a huge narrative element, whether it's analyzing communications or using radar to sense things that are there's all kinds of like radar, sonar, uh, lidar, all those kind of things where it senses. You trick the sensors into either detecting or not detecting something, and that elicits a reaction, both mechanically and socially, without actually having to do any damage. And whole stories can start up because of sensors going off. Now, Cameron says, our sensors picked up life signs, but there doesn't seem to be anything down there, surrounded by plants, right? Yeah, I mean, and often the other part about the reliability of the unreliable is that we, both as human beings and as the equipment that we use, tends to default to things that we're already used to, right? So if your sensor system is set to detect enemy spacecraft, and there's a space whale out there that's never been encountered before, it might default to, oh, I don't know, it's a behemoth classed starship, right? And everyone's like, well, yeah, but it doesn't sound like it. It's not giving off the same radiation signature from the engines, but it's about the same size. So yeah, it's a new type of battle platform or something from the enemy, right? A lot of times we will default to something, much like using our it's like using our phones or computers, right? For audio, and it'll say you hit the button, you hit the microphone, and it says listening. You say a few words, and it defaults to, well, it sounds like you're saying this one thing, right? It defaults to one interaction. Now, how that can help us in gaming, of course, is like I said, sensors go off, but there really isn't any physical problem, or sensors don't go off, and there really is a physical problem, or sensors go off so many times that people ignore the sensors in the first place, ignoring the physical problem, right? A major corporation has the sensors go off that there's a break-in or someone's hacking the system, and then they look around, there's no problem, the alarm goes off again and again and again, and then after a while, security goes, look, just turn the systems off on the rooftop. I know, listen, just call maintenance, have them fix the alarms because the alarms keep going off. And what happens? PCs dressed as maintenance show up and they go, sure, we'll fix the sensors on the roof. And then they get into the building, right? That's an old trope of, it's like the cry wolf thing. You cry wolf, no problem. Cry wolf, there isn't a problem. Cry wolf, you need to stop lying. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, there really is a problem, and everyone ignores you. Now, the other part of this idea of having like an unreliable narrator, we can get a little bit personal with this. Okay. Sometimes in a story, sometimes the unreliable narrator is yourself. Okay. Player character wakes up, or they get some kind of important communique, and someone that looks exactly like them, maybe it really is them, sending themselves a message to say, like, please don't trust a particular individual, or if you're receiving this message, know that your mind's been erased, or you receive a message, and the message tells you that please solve my murder. I know you don't remember this because if you're reading this, it means that it's been too long and your memory's been erased. But I left this message just as a backup plan. The people you're working for are double crossing you, or something like that, right? You may get the message from yourself, and then it comes like, do you trust the message to yourself? Is it really you? Is someone trying to trick you? So a pretty reasonable communication with someone or something could lead to a lot of problems. Another example would be having a communication with someone you do not recognize, and that person is like, we've known each other for like 35 years. I know we've been reskinned in different bodies and re-sleeved and whatnot, but whatever. You and I, man, why don't you remember me? Like, there's something going on here. And you're like, I don't know who you are and what you want from me, but you need to leave me alone. Yep. Yeah, like Cameron says, an accent can make Alexa a headache. Imagine what other minor variations on things like energy signatures could do to sensors, or even the person analyzing the computer data. And see, that's the other thing too, where if you want to make an intriguing game, um, all of us do not interact with our mechanisms in the same way. So, for example, some people, here's a funny anecdote of sorts, like in a personal sense. I don't consider my phone, or like like Echo or Alexa or something, I don't consider it to be a living, breathing thing. But my wife talks to them as if they're people. Like, please, could I'm not going to say the word, but like, we all know the different mechanism, Cortana, Alexa, Google, all that kind of stuff, right? And you can either phrase it as you're talking to a person. Hey, could you please tell me how long it takes to drive from place to place, right? And I'm like, you don't have to say all that. Just go, distance from blank to blank, right? But it comes across as like rude. And so anthropomorphizing our equipment sometimes is a thing that we do. And maybe one particular location or habitat or community talks to or considers their equipment more humanistic, anthropologic. There's also redundancies, right? Like, how much do people trust their automated systems? Is it like a traffic system where everyone just trusts it and no one physically manipulates their vehicles? They all just link it to a system because it's better than the people driving? Or are the automated systems like Cameron is saying, like, is there someone analyzing the material, like Navy personnel in a submarine, analyzing what the radar says, looking at what the radar signature is, and going, yeah, we think it's a behemoth class, battle cruiser, but it isn't. It's probably a space whale. It may not be in a database, but I'm analyzing material and it's not coming across correctly. And it's the funny thing is, as I'm thinking of it as we're talking, is that as science gets better, sometimes we have more questions than a little bit, simply because every anomaly we're either a hyper analyzing that anomaly and going, this does not fit into anything we know, therefore it must be the exception, or the anomaly is like, no, it can't be an anomaly because we absolutely positively know what we're talking about. It must fit into something we already know, right? And those both of those things can be a competing force when you're having an adventure, right? There's some strange people are disappearing in a habitat on, I don't know, in I got to pick another place. Okay, they're on Europa, right? And there are people disappearing in a deep sea habitat, and half the population is like, well, okay, if there's someone disappearing, it's probably a criminal or a murderer. You know, why would it be an alien species or a rogue AI? It's probably a murderer because, you know, more or less that's probably the issue, right? Or they're refugees, or they're committing criminal acts and they're escaping or something because they don't want to be caught. Whereas other people are like, listen, whatever it is, it's disappearing off our sensors, no one knows what it is, no one's seen it. That means therefore it must be something alien, it must be something we've never encountered before, right? And it could be a blending of the two or whatever. Yeah. I like this space whale. Let's name him Wilbur. Yeah. Uh, so, you know, when it comes to like science fiction, we know all of these things, but the extra layer on top of that, especially when it comes to transhumanism, is, you know, uh, brain editing, psychosurgery, cortical stacks, people being able to re-sleeve into different bodies, whether they're biological or synthetic. The fact that you might be spun up from a a cortical stack that was put on ice. So if your cortical stack was on ice for a day, a week, months, years, dozens of years, right? 200 years, and you get spun up, then now you're lacking all the information that happened over the 3 week period of the last mission you went on. And so now when people are telling you, or you're asking like, well, what happened? Like, why do I feel funny? And you're like, well, you've been down for 3 weeks. We couldn't retrieve your cortical stack, but so we had to spin you up from storage. And you're like, okay, so who do I trust? Do I trust any messages I left for myself? Do I trust the people around me to tell me the truth about what happened? And so you, as the player, due to having lack, it's a slang term from Eclipse phase. It's like a lack of continuity. You know, then you start having problems or questions or something, especially if you're part of like a black ops group or a criminal or something like that. You're already dealing with people you can't really trust because you're engaged in activities that, you know, are pretty much untrustworthy. And now you've got to rely on people giving you accurate information about 3 weeks of lost memories. And you know, it's the hangover with railguns, right? It's like, oh, I woke up and I've got a tattoo and there's a chicken running around, and you know, there's a naked Asian who hates my guts. Like, what the hell's going on, right? You know, it's the hangover with railguns idea, you know, where the player characters wake up from a mission and they don't know why they're being hunted, or they don't know why the authorities think they murdered someone. Maybe they did, or why people are befriending them that they've never met before. You know, it's all that combined together for like an unreliable info dump to the player characters. Now, here's another thing too when it comes to like point of view and, you know, unreliable narration and info dumping. Science fiction. I know I've heard people say like they don't really want to run science fiction because it's difficult for them to basically keep track of all the technology, right? Like, it's one of the reasons why we see in movies and television that cell phones don't work, or the power goes out, or an automobile somehow doesn't start. It's because the technology gives your protagonists a significant advantage if they have it. And when you're trying to tell a story of like mystery or intrigue or complications and obstacles, and you want to put them in front of your main characters as a writer, you have to get rid of some of these things. And when the player characters are, you're trying to stick your player characters in a bounded location, right? You're trying to trap them inside of a space elevator, sliding up and down, to Earth's up to Earth's up and down Earth's gravity well, as an example. Wow, my brain. And you're trying to tell a story and trap them on this space elevator, and the PCs are like, well, I can communicate with anyone, and I've got all my cybernetics, and I've got my rail guns, and this isn't really an issue for me when I've got my jetpack, and I've got a parachute, and another PC's got glider wings, and you're just like, oh, I was trying to create this thing. It's trying to keep track of all of the technologies that are involved. So sometimes you have to create a situation where there's limited to no access to those things. And one of the ways to get this across is to, info dump. Info dumping and foreshadowing are kind of combined here with this talk, where you explain circumstances beforehand so that you're not surprising the PCs later on. So an example would be, one of the best examples is to do the classic news report in the background. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but you'll watch a television show or a movie, and there is the local news is on in the background. It might be the weather. It might be talking about a reporter on location looking at something. It might be showing a news conference with some like politicos or criminals being arrested. It doesn't matter. But the reason for that is the news report is dumping information, right? It's giving you like, we're having, hurricanes are off the coast of the Carolinas or something, or this is your intergalactic news and weather service. And you hear the classic news music go, intro, and then the person's like, solar flares are predicted to affect communications later on, right? And so you do the little news report as a throwaway. It's a foreshadow. So now, if you need to cut communications, you need to disrupt radar systems, you need to have a reason why the habitat they're on starts locking people down because of a radiation burst. Now you've already set that up. So if there is something in the background, terrorist activity, or rumors of a nanotech disease starting to spread, or anarchist hackers have been hacking into travel systems and city services or things like that. One of the best ways to info dump is the news service. Even hell, that stuff could even be playing through player characters' visual and audio systems in their own heads, as their internal computers are like, giving them the local news or whatever. When they come into, they're on a starship, they come into orbit around a planet, the planet's broadcasting the local news and giving them a few details, and especially the player character's own internal computers could be like, oh, well, here are some local details about the planet you're about to go on, like a wiki encyclopedia blurb, right? When the PCs are like, oh, the greenish pink hue in the over top of the planet, Bernard Rutherford or something, is a toxic, miasma of things. Most people here wear specifically designed, clothing and spacesuits to survive the acidic storms that are here. The gravity here is 0.87%, close to human gravity, but maybe time to take those calcium tabs or whatever. And that might be just a little blurb. And then all of a sudden, when the PCs get there and they start having a running battle and they get dumped out into this acidic atmosphere, they don't understand. Laws of Gods and Men says, my boyfriend and I are working on a Starfinder campaign with people who are brand new to Starfinder. We're doing a behind the scenes info dump via giving the players a couple of handouts of information their characters would already know about the world. See, a perfect idea. Like, we can assume people playing D&D regularly are familiar with like popular races, places, worlds, and how that works. Simple knowledge checks would work, but brand new players in Starfinder would bog down the gameplay with knowledge checks. Yeah, you know what? I'm new to Starfinder. I'm not familiar with the races, the cultures, the planets. You know, all the places. So a good way, like like you're saying there, Law, is that having a little handout, and even the handouts could like you can, instead of giving the classic, hey guys, I'm going to tell you about the world that you're in, you, build it into the world, build it in, like, oh, they're literally watching a little documentary before they come into orbit, or they decided, as they checked in their status and they come through the spaceport, maybe someone's there handing them something, or one of these blurbs are playing on like going into an airport, it's just playing across a wall, and they see a Tritio screen or something playing this information, and they just, the PCs are just like rolling their eyes and they ignore it as they walk through the three-dimensional image that's addressing all the people getting off of the local starship or something. Um, like Cameron says, weather people are notoriously inaccurate. Space weather must be even harder to predict. Yeah, solar winds. We're 80% chance of solar winds or something. They might even be doing things like predicting space debris, solar flares, radiation. What's some other crap that's out there in space? Neutrinos and particles and electromagnetic bursts and radiation. And the thing is that it could be, if you really want to immerse the players, maybe that's yeah, Laws of God, man. Yeah, that is funny because they are always inaccurate. And you ever notice how first they won't even promise anything. They'll go, well, there's a 35% chance, and then if they go, oh, well, like clear skies tomorrow, all of a sudden the heavens open up, and instead of saying, yeah, we were wrong, they'll go, storm track to the south. Somewhat unprepared, but it's the weather, so the skies were unstable. It was unsettled air, so it's never I was wrong. It's, well, it tracked to the west, or something developed overnight that culminated into the thing, and so yeah, why not put that in space? Now here's something else too. The world still moves around the player characters, and just because the players arrive somewhere or excuse me, or are on a mission doesn't mean the rest of the world, that life stops. If you have a draconian government and the players characters arrive, show draconian actions happening, right? Have things happen in the world that let them know that a place is the way it is. Have hackers or pickpockets or um, like emergency klaxons going off because the habitat's falling apart at the seams, or there are criminals running down the street with security chasing after them with like electro lasers and stun batons or something, beating people about the head and shoulders, or have, when the players arrive, have like uh, almost an inquisition where they're asking them multiple questions over and over and over again, and someone's like, no, 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 they're with me, but the local authorities are like complete suspicious of them or something, right? And then when the players are like, are they suspicious of us, and then someone, maybe they overhear a conversation where someone's like, oh, if the black sabers are upping their attacks on the habitat or something like that. Someone needs to do something about those anarchists living outside the rim. The black sabers are always screwing things up. Like, have things happen in and around the player characters. And the reason why you want to foreshadow it is because On one hand, it might not have any impact on the world at all, right? You're just giving out little bits and pieces, you're giving out story hooks. On the other hand, you might want to be able to incorporate this, and instead of surprising your players, when when like the local thief runs past the player characters and the guards are convinced that that local thief is in cahoots with the players, and the players are like, we didn't have anything to do with them. Now you've got a perfect reason why your local reskinned stormtroopers are going after the player characters for no good reason, because you wanted to have this kind of interaction, as opposed to some random, if the players are like, I rolled my stealth check and I made 80 stealth checks that were perfect, there's no way they would suspect that we're sneaking into the building. Well, sure, not you, but maybe somebody else was sneaking in at the same time, or people have been breaching security, so it's still dangerous no matter how silent you are. Yep. Yeah, yeah. Cameron says, if you want easy draconian, look at what Daenerys did to her enemies, then put it in space. Yeah, yeah. PCs get there and they're like, "Why is that trash they're throwing out into space?" Nope, they are just dumping people. You know, and my feeling about dumping people out into space. It's like, yay, kinetic kill weapons as human beings, great. Like Tesla Ranger puts in, like, Bashir, out of all the stories you told me, which ones were true and which ones weren't? And Garrick says, my dear doctor, they were all true. Bashir says, even the lies? And Garrick says, especially the lies. Yeah, see, it's um people are people, so what could it be? you know, it's like people will always want to manipulate things into their own favor, right? Politicians and corporate leaders, especially, but even criminals and just your average citizen will want to reframe, recontextualize information around them. So, yeah, why would people lie? Because they're liars, right? They don't there's something that they don't want other people to know about, whether it is manipulating their own status, or trying to achieve some kind of like statistical uh, people that lie about their own social standing so that they can gain some other social standing within a particular group, right? The glitterati, the blue bloods, the people with their nose in the air. Those people might not want anyone else to know about their criminal background or their humble beginnings, right? So people will lie about their backgrounds, and we've known that there's a thing where um, perception makes reality, right? So sending out disinformation could make a thing happen that normally wouldn't be happening in the first place if it wasn't for the disinformation. So an example would be someone could send out a lie about the local government, how corrupt they are. And that could be a complete lie until the people start to believe it. And then the incorruptible government starts engaging in insidious actions because they can't get things done because everyone thinks that they are corrupted, right? It's pushing people over the edge until it gets to the point where it's the Joker, in the Dark Knight, pushing Batman to the point of forcing Batman to try to give up his own standards and practices, right? So heck, it's like we do things today. You turn on a camera, you say things to someone, you elicit a reaction, and then when you get that reaction out of them, now you have your proof, right? So that might be a commonality as well. The other thing is believing in something because people just want to believe it in the first place. So video footage, there's video evidence of a player character committing a crime. Player character's like, I was never there. Someone faked the video, right? Now, is it more likely people want to say, oh, that video's fake? Or is it more likely that people will go, yeah, th- they run around, committing crimes and they're black ops. Of course they committed that crime. Why would I assume that's fake? That's not a fake video. This leads into everything that they normally would do, right? It's that kind of idea. It's the fake evidence that points to the behavior of a person that everyone's going to believe anyway, because the fake evidence would very readily be real. Cameron's talking about Garrick. I loved him. Odo the most. The captain was awesome, and so were the Ferengi. Imagine how much different one piece of info would be from a Ferengi versus a Starfleet officer. Yeah. and of course, in a sci-fi adventure, when the PCs are getting like divergent pieces of information, it might be like, well, do I believe this one group or do I believe another? And like the Ferengi, right? Everyone knows not to trust absolutely what a Ferengi has to say, but there might be some shreds of truth in it, almost as if it's the classic riddle of two doors, two heads on the door. One head always lies, the other one always tells the truth. How do you one of them says that there's a door where if you go through it, you'll die. The other head said there's a door, if you go through it, you'll be rich forever. How do you know which one to trust? And the answer to that riddle is you ask one door what the other door would say, right? Because the lie itself gives you just as much information as the truth. So if you ask one door what the other one would say, then the lying door would tell you that the truthful door which knows which one it is, would then lie about what the truthful one would say, and then the truthful one would tell you what the lying one would say, so you get the exact same answer, and then you do the opposite of what you said the other one would do, right? So it's weird. It's a weird riddle, but I described it terribly, but you get the point, right? Like sometimes the misinformation gives you just as much or more information than you would if someone told you the truth, because you can read between the lines. A Cold War going on the surface of Mars, where everyone knows that everywhere is being recorded all the time, and everyone's talking in like these linguistical fugue kind of thing, where they're saying one thing, but you can see on their face and their body language that they're trying to say something else, because everyone is scared about revealing particular information, maybe to an AI security system or draconian government or something. Then you're already getting information, right? Why has everyone got these fake smiles plastered on their face, and why isn't anyone actively resisting what's going on? Because everyone, as we've seen the classic person like doing the finger to the lips, the hush maneuver, because they're being recorded, right? Then that gives you, well, who's recording us? Why are they recording us? Why are people panicked that they're being recorded? Why are they leaving the recordings available in the first place? Like, why leave the bug there? If you're being recorded, who's using this information? What purpose are they recording it for? How does the person know they're being recorded in the first place, that someone's using it anyway, right? It's all these things added together. It gives you lots of questions and a hell of a lot of answers as well. Also, when it going down this unreliable narration path that I hinted to before, the idea that you as a player character, and we talked about this on the channel before, one of the great things that I love about transhumanist role-playing games is that both your body and your mind might be things that they're equipment. They're changeable. They are just as fluid as everything else in a game. And your own background, your own personality, your own player character might be the impetus for an adventure. So, maybe there is a perfectly acceptable reason why you yourself would delete 3 weeks of your own memories, only to find out that you're trying to get back those 3 weeks when a criminal organization is like, hmm, we thought we made an agreement for this person to delete their last 3 weeks. Now he's breaking his oath and he's going to try to discover what happened over those last 3 weeks. We need to stop him. And as a player character, it's like, well, why would I delete my 3 weeks of my past? There must be something wrong. Maybe the bad guy deleted those past 3 weeks and come to find out, no, it was you. That it wasn't a bad guy. Or come to find out that the bad guy really is you, and the personality that you have has been in a chopped down edit of the real personality. Like, oh no, I'm you. You're just a lesser version of me. I sent you on a mission to, infiltrate the good guys. Thanks for infiltrating the good guys, right? That's what was it? A Total Recall plot. Sorry, spoiler alert for a 20-plus-year-old movie or something. But yeah, you may discover that you are your own antagonist, and what a kick in the pants that would be, right? The same thing when it goes to your body, when your body is replaceable or changeable or whatever the case may be, and the PC wakes up in a body that they're not normally that they would not normally associate themselves with. Then you're like, well, why and how and who? And I was expecting to wake up in my cybered out combat morph, and I wake up in some used case morph, that some synthetic case morph, being shipped off in a box to some, pseudo rich debutante or something. And it's like, what the hell just happened to me? And what the hell, what's going on, right? And maybe that's that unreliable, like, I'm supposed to be on a mission and now I'm in a storage container being shipped, halfway across the planet or even to another planetary system. Yeah, there's a lot of questions in there, and discovering why and you know what problems came up. Whether, hey, you know, as a firewall agent, the agency is like, oh, we were intending to beam you guys to, the morphs for this mission, but security got locked down because of an uprising and riots and things. So we had to, we had to spin you up inside of used synthetic morphs. Your bodies are still there, but you're going to have to finagle a way to get to them. Good luck. And oh, by the way, remember those blueprints to print out all your equipment and stuff and your weapons and everything? Yeah, they're in storage, so you're going to have to get that too. So yeah, you're not going to have any of your weapons. You're going to have to, navigate through the social strata to get to where you need to go. So, I mean, all those problems could come up just because of one little thing going wrong, because you may have trusted or inadvertently trusted a piece of information that you should have gotten. Now, another part of trust and not trust, and this is going to be a little bit difficult to get to do, because what you don't want to do is break the trust of your players by doing a gotcha, but NPCs that lie, AI systems that suddenly switch their personalities, um, inserting NPCs from characters' backgrounds into the fold when the player may feel like they should have already known. An example would be Takashi is a perfect example from Altered Carbon, where, spoiler alert, in the first season, you come to find out that a number of NPCs that the Takashi main character interacts with you come to find out was actually his sister that's been shadowing him for a while. So, like I said, you got to be real careful about, like, retconning some of the people or information the players got, um, because the players might balk at the idea that, why, like, for example, that, of course, that was developed for consumption by consumers, but to tell a player, oh, remember those last 6 NPCs? Yeah, those last 6 NPCs were actually the same personality of someone who's been trailing you. Some players love that stuff and might embrace it and go, "Oh, that's cool," right? Other players might be thinking like, "That makes no sense. Why wouldn't I know that that was my, great grandfather, inserted into the body of the local kid and a newspaper, person selling newspapers and a taxi driver, and like that doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't notice that, right?" Um, you got to be real careful about the bait and switch when it comes to something that's like, you're narrating something, but you as the game master are specifically being the unreliable narrator, because then the players will always think you're lying, and that's terrible to break that. Now, Cameron says a madness could make a person an unreliable narrator to themselves. Perception twists, and suddenly you think people are doing things they aren't. A virus could replicate a madness in an android. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that idea. Like, well, first of all, just loss of sanity is a thing that's in, for example, the role playing game Eclipse Phase and Altered Carbon, and well, heck, all the versions of the various Cthulhu Lovecraftian games and so on and so forth. So, simple sanity loss may be a problem itself, and then that can come across just simply by like getting re-sleeved or things like that. Now there could be external reasons. The going into a habitat where there's tens of thousands of people whose bodies, a bunch of aliens have done, chest burst out the faces of bodies. Yeah, like Tesla Ranger brings up Joker. Some people would say the movie Joker is nothing but a true story. Others say, well, by the time you get to the end of the movie, I don't know if you can trust all the information in it. And some would say the entire friggin' movie is one big fever dream, right? You don't know. And yeah, your perception of what's going on, your own madness, might be a thing. Heck, oh man, thank you very much. I'm gonna say your name is that British GM. Well, that British GM, thank you for hosting this statesman. I appreciate that. Okay, so also, in addition to the madness, maybe the madness is external, right? Change in air quality, change in gravity, like vertigo. It could be through some kind of drug interaction. Maybe the PC was poisoned, um, like you mentioned, Cam, like a computer virus could be affecting something. As a matter of fact, in Eclipse Phase, there's something known as a basilisk hack. A basilisk hack is seeing, it's like a visual inception of a virus. So you come across a computer screen, that computer screen sends visual information into the brain, which is then translated as digital information, which then affects you. So hypnosis, memory loss, perception changes, all of that. Now, this is something that's even more difficult to deal with. It's also possible, especially if you're a synthetic being, that a certain habitat might affect your perceptions based on your access to your security level access. So if you don't have top secret access or you're not part of security, maybe there are doors, windows, um, uh, elevators that you can't see through your own perception because you don't have access to enter into or see those things because you're a normal citizen, right? So an example would be a a person is pretending to be, you're infiltrating a rich politician. Politician's home, you're traveling along with them, you're acting as their aide because you need to convince the politician to change whatever they're going to do. Now the politician has top secret access, but the player character doesn't. Politician goes to their office, player character goes in the office with them, politician says, all right, I'll be right back. Politician turns the corner, disappears into the wall. Player character's like, wait, where'd they go? You come to find out that as the aide, no, you don't have access to go into the politician's private quarters at the city hall or whatever it is, right? In I don't know, in a tower that's in the storm clouds of some alien planet or something. So yes, the player character could feel around, do the classic, like, it's an illusion, let me feel the wall, but maybe they're prevented from doing that in the first place. From not just seeing it, but physically even entering a place, let alone noticing what it is. Same thing goes for having a conversation. The politician gets ready to have a secret conversation, touches their wristwatch or touches their a tab on the underside of behind their ear, and all of a sudden your audio systems go dead, or maybe it seems like their voice drops out as they start having a conversation with someone because they are, or their face fuzzes out, right? I think there was an episode of Black Mirror that did that, where someone was punished by the authorities to not be able to see and hear and interact with the people around them. And then a convicted they were convicted, so everyone could look at them and see a coding on them as a convicted criminal, right? So yeah, perceptions could change things. People getting fuzzed out. Hell, you could even this is a strange one. You could even have a habitat that only gives people that get to the habitat a time frame for perception based on how much they paid for that perception. So an example would be maybe that book that you purchased only lasts for 30 days, and on the 31st day you don't remember the book. Like, you literally, it gets deleted from your brain, right? A criminal organization might have a deal where, sure, we can have a deal, but we're going to code, and if you break our code of conduct, we're going to activate a coding system that makes you forget that you even had any interaction with us, and not just delete it off the mesh, off the internet, but it gets deleted out of your brain too, and that might affect your perception of things and such, right? Heck, that might even be a great way to add like a tension timer. Anything to ramp up the tension for your players is a great thing to introduce into your game. So if the air quality goes bad, the players are going to forget even the reason why they're on a mission. If there is they've been poisoned or something, and it's going to be 8 hours before it starts to cause your body to decompose and turn into black sludge or whatever, right? All these things could get the players to really, really ramp up what they need to do to get the hell out of a certain place, right? Heck, even like I said before, maybe someone has deactivated sensors on a space habitat that's about to fall into the atmosphere, and no one knew it was going to happen, and the players are like, "What? Why is the place vibrating and shaking?" And everyone's like, "Holy shit, we're going to fall in the atmosphere. Why weren't we notified?" And then people start running around with their head cut off. Player characters need to complete their mission to go get the MacGuffin before they fall into the atmosphere, et cetera, right? So all those things could be incorporated in as like the unreliable narration. Now, mind you, as a game master, to avoid, I hate to say this, use this word as a liar, but to avoid being the liar at the table, you should be giving that information across through other agents, NPCs, messages, like message boards, AI systems, robots. Like, give that information across through interactions. In Eclipse phase, it's assumed that everybody has an implant, a computer implant, a muse, as it's called. And I can see some of you thinking, like, if you're brand new to this kind of thing, I can see some of you going, that's a problem. I mean, if the player characters have, like, every one of them has a computer, like a cell phone plus that gives them all their information, that sucks. And you're like, no, that's a great way to dump information on them, right? It's the, oh, you're meeting an NPC for the first time. Here comes the info dump. It's the classic, you see their face, but you see all the digital lines pointing to the person's face that gives their height, weight, their occupation, a little blurb of their background, and it's an in-game reason for a player character to meet an NPC for the first time, and yet they have the bare basics of who and what that person is about, right? So maybe the player character really doesn't remember them, but the player character's computer, onboard neurological computer says, oh, you've known this person for 27 cycles. And let's say it's an alien. You've known this alien from this race for 27 cycles. Unfortunately, this data has been erased from your cortical stack, but rest assured, you have a great relationship with this individual who has transported you to the, I don't know, through the Dark Star Nebula 12 times, and it has been quite reliable. As a matter of fact, is a trusted ally in the fight against the draconian government. And of course, as a PC, you're like, I don't remember them, but oh, hey, how you doing? Long time no see, right? It's a great way to just dump the info, give it to them, move on, right? It's also the classic Star Trek. I'm not sure what I'm seeing, Captain, or I don't know what I'm sensing, Captain thing, right? It may be the PCs go, I ask my onboard computer. Onboard computer comes back with, I'm not quite certain. This information might be unreliable. So you can also do that too, right? You don't want to do that too often, but yeah. You could do that too, where the player characters are maybe temporarily not linked to a data source, or the onboard computer is like, well, I'm going to need more information to analyze what's going on around you. This might take me many more hours, and it leaves the PC on their own, right? Cameron says, I have yet to implement them, but rumors tables seem like a great way to put out, some information labeled as unreliable to the players. I've used rumors, just not prepared ones. You know what? Well, listen, I beg to differ. You're probably always prepared. You just didn't bother making a rumors table, but you already know what the rumors are, right? And those classic rumors tables were there on purpose. Like, there's a little shred of truth, but there's like a little bit of a lie. People like to exaggerate things. So yeah, there might be some twists and turns in, whether someone could trust a thing or not. So yeah, having rumors tables, having PCs just be in one of those, hyper elevators or something, and they overhear a conversation. They see something on the news or television. They meet an NPC who brings up some rando useless information when they meet them together. They what's some other ways to get information? Someone leaves a flyer on their car. They see a billboard. The player character hasn't been home for a long time and has 287 emails, and one of those messages left for them is some rando bit of rumor or information or something. How about the classic noir? Injured, hunted person finds PC. NPC then dies soon after. Right? It's the fantasy version of the stumbling into the tavern with an arrow in the back and spouting off some cryptic information and a map in their hand. The same thing has been done plenty of times in science fiction. Hey, I need to, message comes across. I need to communicate with you, but I can't. I need to do it over a secure line. I can't do this. Let's go to Death's Peak over on the top of Mars, and let's meet there for an interaction. I'll tell you everything. And then, of course, PC gets there. Person they need to talk to says a word or two. Sniper shot, explosion, fall off cliff. Person's dead. PC gets blamed for it, or PC recovers thumb drive. What the heck's going on? Who's hunting this person? Who's coming after me? Unreliable information, right? It's the I need to tell you something. So-and-so is out to get you and out to get me. PC is like, no, they're not. We're working with them. Like someone saying firewall. The firewall's gonna what's the term? Disavow you. Hey, Ethan Hunt. This mission, should you choose it, right? It's it's the, hey, here are the mission parameters, but I don't think we've got all the information we need, which is a great way of introducing unreliable information, right? It's the, well, here's the mission, but it's probably going to be foobarred, right? It's probably going to be effed up beyond all recognition by the time, it's a simple snatch and grab. It's a simple, B&E. It's a simple break-in. Oh, we're going to steal the MacGuffin. We're going to sneak into the building, get the MacGuffin, sneak out. Okay, you sneak into the building. Security is running all over the place, and guess what? The MacGuffin's gone. Ooh, what the heck happened? Ooh, you get blamed for killing the CEO. And they're like, well, we didn't do that. We were just going to steal some information, right? It's again, great story tropes to use, great story threads. Just be careful about you using them as a game master, right? Because you don't want your players thinking you, as the game master, are unreliable. What you do want them to think is, oh, the NPC that runs the local, bodega or something is the unreliable one. We can use some of their information, but we have to assume they're lying. So maybe we can learn more from their lies than we can from the truth. So anyway, guys, I know this one was a little bit off. I try to keep the themes going all week long. I think next week we're going to be talking about war, or maybe even a prelude to war or something like that. But whatever the case may be, I really appreciate it. Guys, thank you very much for joining in the channel. I really appreciate it. Those of you who, please, if you support the channel, like, share, subscribe, spread the word, follow over on Twitch. For those who don't know, this show is live broadcast Monday through Friday, and of course, this is Future Friday, but it's broadcast over on Twitch, YouTube, and our own Discord server, so you can interact there. Anyway, thank you guys for making me look just a little bit smarter, just a little bit. If only I could keep up with the rest of you. But anyway, all of you, thank you very much for even finding me and being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Everyone have a great day. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great one. I'll see you Monday. Thanks. Bye, guys.